hello Instagram and Facebook, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Christina Previtt. I am lead faculty for clinical management of the fitness, athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum. I hope you are having a very happy Monday. Our course, CMFA Pregnancy and Postpartum, is an 8-week online course where we go through the female athlete's journey from just things that we need to consider for the female athlete to preconception, pregnancy, labor and delivery, and then into her postpartum journey and return to sport. And so our next cohort starts on January 11th. I won't forget this because it's my dad's birthday. And so if you guys are interested in taking part in that course, our next cohort doesn't start until 2021. And we hope that you are going to join us. We have a couple of other courses that are starting that are online. CMFA Essential Foundations is starting next week. That is the 8-week online course that goes through some of the basic movements of CrossFit and how to treat common musculoskeletal injuries in CrossFit. And then we also have our telehealth course that is starting November 16th with Rob Vining. So if you are interested in doing some telehealth, if you're going through different waves of closures with COVID, it's a good skill set to have, and it helps you set up your practice. Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about contraception, relative energy deficiency in sport, and why we as PTs need to care about this. And so in 2014, the term relative energy deficiency in sport was coined, and it replaced female athlete triad. And the reason why this was done is, one is that REDS is not just a female specific condition. It can also happen in men. And the second thing is that it focused on 3 pillars, which was loss of menstruation, amenorrhea, bone health changes, and low energy availability. Those were the 3 kind of tenets of female athlete triad. And as we started to learn more and more about this, we recognized that it was just so much more than that it affected all systems. So the output was a loss of menstrual period, usually 3 months within the year of not having a regular menstrual cycle in persons who are of childbearing age. But where there are so many other things that occur. So when you have a client who is dealing with relative energy deficiency in sport, you are more likely to be seeing these people if they are in lean-centric sports. What I mean by that is that athletes who are in, for example, weight class sports or are in sports that value being thin, you are more likely to have a person with REDS. And so this was traditionally thought of in things like ballet. And some of the issues around female athlete triad is that dancers oftentimes don't talk to them about themselves as athletes. They talk to them as dancers and performers. And so sometimes there was this loss of translation in terms of who we were trying to serve. Yeah, dancers, weight class sports, so weightlifters, bodybuilders who are dealing with physique changes, especially as they get close to competition time, and we can talk about that a little bit more, and other sports like swimming, synchronized swimming, acrobatic sports, gymnastics, et cetera, and then the whole endurance sphere. So a lot of long distance runners do not want to gain more weight because they want to be as light as possible to help with their sport, which makes sense. And so that is kind of some of the things that we are seeing, those athletes that are more susceptible. The main construct, though, around relative energy deficiency in sport is the fact that your menstrual cycle is your report card. And if you are showing low energy availability, which is either an undernourishing or an overtraining stimuli that makes it so that the calories that you are burning are in excess of the calories that you have available to you based on your nutrition over and over and over again, then what usually happens is that our body preserves functions that are vital to our organ systems, and it gets rid of or stops systems that are considered optional. And for women, menstruation is optional. So you see this decline in estrogen that occurs and a cessation of menstruation that occurs that results in this physical manifestation of low energy availability. So why am I talking about contraception then? The reason why is because often there are methods of contraception that prevent or stop a woman from having a period each month, or the hormones are synthetically causing bleeds at the end of every month, but they are not true menstrual bleeds. They're a result of the off week of the cycling of the contraceptive. And what that means is that we can have athletes who are bleeding every month through the use of contraception, or have no idea if they would be bleeding every month and are actually in reds. And so we have to try and think about these types of situations when we're working with athletes. And there isn't a lot of literature that has been done in the CrossFit athlete, but I would argue that it is another sport where that lean, strong physique is very, very aspired to. It's also a sport where nutrition has taken a really front-facing piece to success in the sport, which is fantastic. But sometimes if you have athletes who are burning 2,600 calories and they're avoiding all carbohydrates except for things that are coming from fruits and vegetables, it would be extremely difficult to meet the demand of what your sport is expecting of you from a calorie burn perspective and what you're intaking from those nutritional, high nutrient dense, low caloric foods. And so what can we do? So Laura, you said you want to connect? Absolutely. I would love to talk about this more. I have been geeking out about this for a very long time. So absolutely, make sure you do that. So if we're thinking about the fact that we have these women who are coming in who have an IUD that's been in for the last 3 years, but they've lost a significant amount of weight, they've gotten really in control of their health, they are, starting to see a lot of gains in the gym, and then all of a sudden they're starting to have these nagging injuries that are coming up, or we have an unfortunate diagnosis of a stress fracture. That tends to be one that probably someone has had relative energy deficiency in sport for quite some time when you're starting to see the stress fracture piece come up. Or they have been really, really conscious of their nutrition and their caloric intake has been very low. And so those are some of the things that would be flagging in my mind. And what that means as clinicians is that we have to start asking about this, especially for our female athletes. And that is not just our competitively active individuals. That is our recreationally active moms, our moms who are trying to get back into sport, our moms who are being active but also who are constantly dieting. These are the ones that I would be kind of worried about a little bit more, because they're going to be the ones that may be trying to really bring their energy or caloric intake down and their exercise up in order to lose weight as quickly as possible. And that can have long-term consequences. And so if you have a client that's coming in, what we need to start asking is, are you on any contraception? Do you have a regular menstrual cycle? Have you had any changes in your menstrual cycle in the last year? Are you trying to lose weight? What does your nutrition look like? Go through a typical day with me. And I don't usually get kickback from my clients because some people say, well, it's not really like what they're coming in to see me about. But I say, I need to know about your capacity to recover. It's the same reason why I ask about sleep. It's the same reason why I ask about stress management and coping strategies for stress. It's so important for us to know our client's capacity to recover. Because if I have somebody who is going through REDS right now, one, they're going to need to gain weight if they want to get out of that. Two, they may have a longer course of care with me because their body isn't in a state where recovery optimally is going to be happening. And three is if I'm seeing them in a pelvic capacity, it may affect their fertility down the road, right? Because if they are having an IUD and are going through relative energy deficiency in sport, and then they get their IUD out and all of a sudden they're not menstruating, the average length of time for a woman who is out of REDS, who has gained the appropriate weight that she needs to start menstruating again, is about 9 months. And so for some women, that can be devastating, that it has taken that amount of time to get their menstrual cycle back that they didn't even know that they had lost in the first place. And you might be the first contact person that they're seeing that could flag this in their minds. And you can make the referral to a registered dietitian or some sort of licensed nutrition specialist that has the scope of practice to be handling this type of thing. And so I will often talk too about when I was at my leanest, I was probably sitting at 10 to 13% body fat, but my menstrual cycle was always on point. Like, it was like to the day. I knew exactly when it was coming, and I was eating like 2,500 calories a day. And so I was at a lower body fat percentage, but I also had the nutrition to supply what I was looking to achieve with my sports and athletics, and making sure that all my hormone levels were staying appropriate, and I had those markers to check. So what my conclusion part is that we really do need to know about relative energy deficiency in sport. I almost want to say relative energy deficiency because the sport can make it seem like some of our other women that are coming in are not the ones who are in this patient population, which is so untrue. There was a study that was published in 2014 that I just posted on my personal Instagram that showed that 15% of pre and postmenopausal women were in a disordered eating pattern in regards to the amount of restriction of calories that they were having. And so that's going to have huge implications for us from a rehab perspective. And so we're seeing some of these statistics come out. And so we have to be aware of low energy availability, and that means that we have to ask about nutrition. So if we are the first person that's coming in, what are some of the things that we're looking for? The loss of period is number one. If you have a client who does not have a period that is regular because of some of her contraceptive use, then other things that we're looking for is decreased attention, altered mood, decreased muscular endurance, decreased recovery in between exercise bouts, increased risk of injury, the injury that is nagging, especially if we get into stress fracture type zones, then we're probably thinking definitely in relative energy deficiency in sport. We're going to see a decline in estrogen levels. So some women may be diagnosed with PCOS. I did an interview with Alex Germano, and that was the story that she had where they thought that she had PCOS. It was actually REDS. And so these are the way that this patient is going to present, where you may be thinking, okay, we need to also talk about nutrition here, and I need to make a referral out. And that's going to mean that if you have a client who's lost a significant amount of weight but is now in too much of a calorie deficit, and this does not mean that they have to be super lean, that is not true or consistent in the literature, they are going to probably have to gain weight or increase their calories into a surplus for an extended period of time. It can be slow to allow their body to recover from a hormonal perspective and get those engines running again. So if this is something that you're seeing in clinic, you can make the argument, the reason why you're asking these questions is because it's definitely going to alter our course of care, and it's going to make us have to think about your ability to recover. Food is fuel. It's also nourishment to help our bodies recover from injury. And then it may be the trigger for a referral to either primary care physician. It may be that you're starting to see some underlying disordered eating. Like, it doesn't have to be eating disorder of anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, or orthorexia nervosa. And those are other things that we need to be aware of. But it may be some disordered eating around restriction or obsession around restriction of dieting that we may need to make potentially a referral to a counselor, for example. And from those things, we're going to be able to have conversations with our athletes about appropriate fueling for recovery. All right, I hope you guys found that helpful. If you are interested in learning more about our CMFA pregnancy and postpartum course, we start January 11th. And so we are hoping to have you all on board. If you are looking to get into CMFA Essential Foundations, it starts next week. Rob Vining's course on telehealth starts on the 16th. And otherwise, I will see you all on Wednesday, where I use my other hat and I start talking about all things Jerry PT. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.